The stars above the planet Veyron were filled with fire. Plasma bolts and missile trails streaked across the darkness, painting the sky in bright bursts of red and blue. From the surface, the night looked like a storm made of light, a storm that carried death with every strike. The people of Veyron, both civilians and soldiers, could only watch with fear as the battle raged. The Galactic Coalition fleet had come here to defend the colony, but things had not gone as planned. What began as a simple patrol had turned into a nightmare. The raiders, organized, merciless, and far more powerful than expected, had appeared from hyperspace like wolves circling helpless prey. At first, the Coalition ships tried to hold them back, but the enemy's numbers grew by the hour. Commander Threx stood on the command deck of the Coalition, flagship Silver Crest. His mandibles clicked in frustration as another report came in. 2 more frigates. Lost, his aide announced, voice tense. Shields down on Blue Flame. Casualties increasing on the ground defense lines. Sir, our forces cannot hold this position for long. Threx's 4 eyes narrowed. He had seen war before, but never like this. The raiders were not supposed to be so well armed. Coalition intelligence had promised a minor threat, something easily contained. Instead, the enemy had heavy cruisers, planetary assault craft, and endless waves of troops. Send the distress signal again, Threx ordered. Request reinforcements from the nearest Coalition sectors. Tell them this world will fall without immediate aid. The message went out into the void, a desperate cry for help. Veyron was more than just a colony. It was a key world at the edge of Coalition space. If it fell, dozens of nearby systems would be vulnerable. Losing it could mean the beginning of something far worse. On the surface of Veyron, things were no better. Cities burned as civilians rushed to evacuation shelters. The Coalition garrison, made up of mixed species, tried to hold defensive lines against raider dropships. The defenders fought with bravery, but their morale was low. Every hour brought more losses. Lieutenant Arveth, a reptilian officer in charge of a forward base, stared at the smoking ruins of the defense wall. His soldiers were exhausted. Some had not eaten in days. Others were wounded but refused to leave their posts. We cannot hold without support, one of his junior officers said quietly. Backup must come soon or we are finished. Arveth had no answer. He looked up at the sky where the battle still raged in orbit. Reinforcements had to arrive. They simply had to. Days passed and the situation worsened. The Coalition fleet shrank with each battle. Supply lines were cut off. On the ground, enemy forces pushed deeper into key cities, capturing block after block. When word finally came that reinforcements were on the way, hope stirred again. The Coalition soldiers whispered about fleets from the core worlds, about heavily armed battle groups that would sweep in and drive the raiders away. Some spoke of armored divisions and elite strike teams, the best soldiers the Coalition had to offer. But then the actual message arrived. Commander Threx read it aloud on the bridge. His voice faltered halfway through, disbelief clear in his tone. Backup forces are en route. Contingent strength, 1 company of humans. Silence filled the command deck. Officers exchanged uneasy glances. Some muttered in confusion. Others scoffed openly. Humans? One officer said. That is all they send? 1 company of Deathworlders? Another shook her head. This must be a mistake. We requested full reinforcement, not this. Threx clenched his fists. He knew the stories about humans. Everyone in the Coalition did. They were newcomers to galactic space, barely a century past their first interstellar flight. Their technology was not the most advanced, their fleets were small and their worlds few. And yet, they had a reputation, a dangerous one. Deathworlders. It was a term spoken with both fear and unease. Humanity's homeworld was infamous among the stars, a place where storms flattened cities, where predators hunted even the hunters, where disease, fire, and hunger shaped every generation. Few other species could imagine growing up in such a place. To survive there, humans had become different, tough, adaptable, relentless. Still, Threx could not hide his disappointment. We asked for fleets, he muttered. They send us Deathworlders. This may be the end of us. On the ground, the news spread quickly. Soldiers in the trenches laughed bitterly. A handful of humans? That is our salvation? One soldier spat. They will die as we have died, another said grimly. Perhaps, a third replied. But I have heard humans do not fall easily. Lieutenant Arveth listened quietly. He too had heard rumors. Stories of human soldiers holding impossible lines. of colonists surviving in the harshest conditions where no other species could last a day. Some called them reckless. Others called them monsters. But all agreed on one thing. Humans did not fight like anyone else. Arveth did not know if that was enough to save Veyron. 2 days later, the human ship arrived. It was small compared to the Coalition warships. An old transport vessel, armored and scarred from past battles. It slipped into orbit without fanfare, carrying fewer than 200 soldiers. When the humans disembarked onto the surface, Coalition officers were there to meet them. The humans stepped out in worn combat armor, faces marked by fatigue but eyes sharp and steady. They carried weapons that looked outdated compared to Coalition standards, but the way they held them made every soldier watching uneasy. These were not untested recruits. These were fighters. Their leader, a broad-shouldered captain with a calm expression, saluted smartly to Commander Threx. "Captain Marcus Hale, Earth Expeditionary Force, we hear you've got a problem." Threx studied the man. "You are the reinforcements?" Hale smiled slightly. "That's right. Don't worry, we've handled worse." The Coalition officers exchanged doubtful glances. How could a few humans hope to turn the tide against thousands of raiders? But when Hale's soldiers looked around, they did not seem afraid. In fact, some of them looked eager, as though they had been waiting for a real fight. That night, while the Coalition planned yet another desperate defense, the humans gathered in their makeshift camp. They spoke in low voices, joking and laughing even as enemy artillery echoed in the distance. Coalition soldiers nearby stared in confusion. How could anyone laugh in a place like this? Lieutenant Arveth approached Captain Hale. "You do not seem troubled by the odds," he said carefully. Hale shrugged. "Odds don't matter. All that matters is that we don't quit. Your numbers are small. The enemy is vast." Hale met his gaze. "Then we'll just have to be smarter, faster, meaner." There was no arrogance in his voice, only certainty. Arveth did not know whether to feel reassured or terrified. The next morning, the first test came. Enemy raiders launched an assault on the southern perimeter, overwhelming the Coalition defenses. Soldiers began to retreat, panic spreading through the lines. Then the humans moved. Captain Hale led his company into the chaos, not with careful formation, but with bold, aggressive maneuvers. They sprinted through collapsing trenches, rallied fleeing soldiers, and charged straight into the enemy's advance. Where Coalition troops fired cautiously, the humans struck with sudden violence, shouting commands and improvising on the spot. The Coalition watched in shock as the humans turned a retreat into a counterattack. Explosives planted on the fly destroyed enemy vehicles. Small squads of humans broke off, striking weak points, then vanishing into cover before the enemy could react. Every move seemed reckless, yet somehow it worked. By the time the sun rose higher, the southern perimeter still stood. The raiders had been pushed back, leaving wreckage behind. Coalition soldiers stared at the humans with new eyes. These were not ordinary reinforcements. They were something else entirely. Deathworlders. That night, Commander Threx wrote in his log, "We asked for backup and they sent humans. I do not yet know if this is salvation or madness. But one thing is certain. These Deathworlders fight as though the universe itself forged them for war. And for the first time in many days, I believe we may yet survive." The morning air on Veyron was heavy with smoke. Fires from the previous night's battle still burned in the ruins of the southern perimeter. Coalition soldiers moved slowly among the rubble, gathering the wounded, repairing defenses, and counting the dead. But in the midst of this grim work, there was a strange feeling, a sense of something the soldiers had not felt for many days. Hope. The reason for that hope was simple: the humans. Word spread quickly across the lines about what had happened. The retreat had been turned into a counterattack. The humans had fought like no one else, reckless yet precise, savage yet controlled. They had taken impossible odds and somehow pushed the raiders back. Soldiers who once mocked the idea of humans as reinforcements now whispered in awe. "Did you see them?" a Coalition gunner said as he cleaned his weapon. "They charged straight into enemy fire. I thought they were insane, but they didn't fall. They fight like predators," another muttered. "Like creatures that know only survival." "Deathworlders," a third said, shaking his head. "That word finally makes sense." Commander Threx summoned Captain Hale to the command tent later that day. The Coalition officers sat in silence as the human entered. Hale's armor was scorched, his face streaked with dirt, but his eyes were calm. Threx studied him for a long moment before speaking. "You saved the southern perimeter," Threx said slowly, "but at great risk. Your tactics were unorthodox. You broke formation, ignored orders, and fought with no regard for your own survival. Yet somehow it worked." Hale gave a small shrug. "That's how we do things. You don't beat the enemy by following their rules. You beat them by making your own." One officer leaned forward, frustration in his voice. "You humans act like chaos itself. That is not how wars are won. Discipline is everything." Hale's gaze sharpened. "Discipline keeps you alive when things go to plan. But when plans collapse, discipline won't save you. Instinct will. Adaptability will. And that's what we bring." The room went silent. Threx finally gave a nod. "Perhaps we need some of that adaptability." Meanwhile, on the battlefield, the Coalition soldiers began to see the humans in action more closely. Unlike the Coalition's rigid formations, the humans moved in small squads, each one led by a sergeant who made decisions quickly. They climbed over rubble, used destroyed vehicles as cover, and even set traps using debris. Lieutenant Arveth, still skeptical, decided to observe one of their patrols. He followed a group of 5 humans led by Sergeant Ramirez. They moved quietly through the ruined streets, scanning every shadow. At one point, Ramirez raised his hand and the squad froze. Arveth saw nothing, but the humans crouched low, weapons ready. Moments later, a raider scout appeared at the corner. The humans opened fire instantly, striking the enemy before he could even react. "How did you know he was there?" Arveth asked in disbelief. Ramirez tapped his ear. "Sound. Footsteps on loose stone." "You didn't hear it?" Arveth shook his head. He had heard nothing. To the humans, danger seemed to speak in a language only they understood. The raiders, however, were not blind to what was happening. Their commander, a tall insectoid warlord named Koresh, paced within his command bunker. Reports from the front lines troubled him. "These new fighters," Koresh hissed, slamming a clawed hand against the table. "They are not Coalition." "Who are they?" His second-in-command answered cautiously. "Humans, Lord. Deathworlders. Stories say they are dangerous." Koresh's mandibles clicked with irritation. "Dangerous?" "They are few. They bleed as all creatures bleed. We will crush them." Yet deep in his mind, Koresh felt unease. He had fought many foes, but these humans fought differently. They refused to retreat, refused to break. And every time his forces pushed forward, the humans twisted the battle back against him. Back at the Coalition camp, tensions grew between human and Coalition soldiers. Many still doubted the humans, calling them reckless or foolish. But others began to admire them, copying their methods. Some even asked to train with them. One night, Arveth joined a group of humans around their campfire. They sat casually, eating simple rations, laughing at old stories. Arveth could not understand how they could laugh in the middle of war. "Why are you not afraid?" Arveth finally asked. "You face death every day, yet you joke as if nothing matters." One human, Private Lewis, grinned. "We are afraid. Anyone who says they're not is lying. But fear's not a chain, it's fuel. It sharpens us," Captain Hale added. "We learned long ago that life is fragile. On our world, storms, beasts, and even the ground itself try to kill us. You don't live long if you let fear freeze you. You use it or you die." Arveth stared at them, realizing for the first time what made humans so different. For them, survival was not just instinct. It was a way of life. The real test came 2 nights later. The raiders launched a massive assault on the central defense line. Waves of armored vehicles rolled forward, supported by airstrikes. Coalition soldiers struggled to hold their ground. Explosions rocked the trenches and communications filled with desperate cries for help. Threx ordered all forces to reinforce the line. The humans moved swiftly, splitting into small groups. Captain Hale led one team directly into the heaviest fighting. Arveth watched in disbelief as Hale's squad climbed onto an enemy tank, planted charges, and leaped off just before it exploded. Another squad used grappling lines to pull themselves onto rooftops, raining fire down on raider troops below. Everywhere the humans fought, the tide shifted. Their courage was contagious. Coalition soldiers who once hesitated now followed them, charging into battle with renewed strength. By dawn, the raiders were forced to retreat once again. After the battle, the Coalition camp was filled with cheers. For the first time in weeks, the defenders felt like victory was possible. Soldiers clapped humans on the back, sharing food and stories. The walls between them began to crumble. Threx addressed his officers. The humans are few, but they have given us something we had lost, belief. They remind us that we are not beaten yet. Perhaps this war can still be won. Arveth, standing nearby, added softly. They fight as if survival is their birthright. And perhaps it is. In the raider camp, Koresh slammed his claws in rage. These Deathworlders, they are nothing but vermin. Yet they bleed us more than entire fleets. His mandibles spread wide in fury. If they wish to fight like predators, then we will show them true predators. He ordered his forces to prepare a new strategy. One meant not just to crush the coalition, but to break the humans completely. But Koresh did not know that breaking humans was far harder than he imagined. That night, as the stars burned over Veyron, the humans rested in their camp. They cleaned their weapons, repaired their gear, and spoke quietly of home. But behind their calm eyes was a fire that never faded. They were Deathworlders, and they had only just begun to fight. The world of Veyron had become a battlefield of smoke and fire. Cities lay in ruins. Skies were dark with ash, and the land trembled under endless artillery strikes. Yet in the midst of this chaos, something remarkable was happening. The humans, those few Deathworlders sent as reinforcements, were not just fighting. They were teaching. The coalition soldiers had always fought by strict rules. Formations, orders, strategies, all carefully planned. But war on Veyron did not follow rules. The raiders attacked without warning, changed tactics constantly, and struck wherever defenses were weakest. Coalition methods struggled against this chaos. The humans, however, seemed to thrive in it. Captain Marcus Hale gathered his troops one morning in the ruins of an old city plaza. Coalition officers stood nearby, curious but doubtful. Hale's voice was steady as he spoke, his words simple but powerful. "Out here," he said, pointing toward the smoke-filled horizon. "There are no perfect plans. The enemy doesn't give us time for that. We adapt or we die. That's the human way. That's the Deathworld way." He looked at both humans and coalition soldiers. "You follow orders, yes. But when those orders collapse, when the battlefield changes in seconds, you don't freeze. You move, you think. You survive. That's how we win." Some coalition officers shifted uncomfortably. The idea of breaking away from strict command sounded dangerous. But others listened carefully. The results were already clear. Humans had saved entire defense lines by doing exactly that. Lieutenant Arveth, who had once doubted them, decided to train under the humans. He followed Sergeant Ramirez's squad into the rubble-strewn streets. "First rule," Ramirez said, crouching low as he moved. "The battlefield talks to you. Learn to listen." Arveth frowned. "Talks? I hear nothing but explosions," Ramirez smirked. "Listen better. The enemy makes noise when they move. A step on stone, a click of a weapon, the way the birds scatter. Your ears, your eyes, even your skin, use them all." As they moved through the ruins, Arveth tried. At first, all he heard was chaos. But slowly, he began to notice small things. A faint scrape on metal, the echo of shifting gravel. When a raider scout appeared moments later, Arveth realized he had felt it just before he saw it. For the first time, he understood what the humans meant. The humans also showed a toughness that shocked the coalition. One afternoon, during a skirmish near the eastern wall, Private Lewis was wounded by shrapnel. The injury tore into his leg and blood soaked his armor. Coalition medics rushed forward, ready to evacuate him. But Lewis waved them off with a grin. "Bandage it up," he said, "and give me back my rifle." "I'm not done yet," the medics protested, horrified. A wound like that should have sent him off the battlefield. But Lewis insisted. He fought the rest of the battle limping, refusing to quit. Coalition soldiers stared in disbelief. Most of them would have collapsed from such pain, but the human carried on as though nothing had happened. Later that night, Arveth asked Captain Hale about it. Why does he fight through such pain? It is not logical. A wounded soldier should retreat. Hale's expression was calm. Because on our world, pain is constant. You learn to keep moving or you don't survive. That's how humanity was shaped. By a world that never forgave weakness. We don't fight because we enjoy it. We fight because it's the only way we know to live. Arveth said nothing, but inside he began to see humanity not as reckless fools but as creatures built for survival. The raider commander Koresh, however, was growing furious. His forces had expected an easy conquest. Instead, they faced resistance that grew stronger with each passing day. These humans are a disease, Koresh hissed to his lieutenants. They infect the coalition with courage. They turn cowards into fighters. This cannot continue. Koresh ordered larger assaults, hoping to overwhelm the humans by sheer force. The next attack came at dawn. Raiders poured into the northern districts, supported by heavy walkers and gunships. Coalition soldiers braced for collapse, but the humans had prepared something new. They had turned the city itself into a weapon. Traps hidden in buildings brought down entire walls on advancing walkers. Snipers used rooftops to target enemy officers. Small fire teams darted through alleys, striking from unexpected angles. The raiders were stronger, but the humans were cleverer. One squad, led by Sergeant Ramirez, lured an enemy column into a narrow street. Then they detonated charges hidden in the rubble, burying half the enemy under stone and fire. Another squad hacked into abandoned machinery, turning old construction drones into improvised weapons. By nightfall, the raiders were forced to withdraw again. The humans had not just defended, they had humiliated their enemies. After the battle, coalition soldiers gathered around the humans, eager to learn. "How do you think so fast?" one asked. "Why do you risk so much?" Another added. Captain Hale answered simply, "Because we don't see battles as neat or clean. We see them for what they are, chaos. And chaos is where we're at home." His words spread through the camp. Soldiers who once doubted humans now began to imitate them, fighting with more creativity, more courage. But there was another side to the humans that surprised the coalition even more. That evening, after the day's victory, Hale walked through the medical tents. He checked on every wounded soldier, human and coalition alike. He spoke quietly to them, sometimes joking, sometimes just listening. "You care for all of them," Arveth observed. "Not just your own kind," Hale nodded. "Out here, we're all the same. Doesn't matter if you're human, reptilian, insectoid, or anything else. We're soldiers. We bleed the same. We fight the same enemy. That's enough." Arveth felt a strange warmth at those words. He realized the humans did not just bring new tactics. They brought unity. Meanwhile, Koresh planned his next move. He would not allow these Deathworlders to continue inspiring resistance. "Prepare the full assault," Koresh growled. "We will throw everything at them. Let us see if even humans can withstand the weight of an army." The humans, of course, expected this. Around their fires that night, they spoke calmly about what was coming. "They'll hit us harder than ever tomorrow," Ramirez said, checking his rifle. Lewis grinned, despite the bandage still on his leg. "Good, I was worried they were getting lazy." Even in the face of overwhelming odds, they laughed. And the coalition soldiers, once fearful, found themselves laughing too. For the first time in weeks, the defenders of Veyron felt not like victims, but like hunters, and it was all because of the Deathworlders. That night, Commander Threx made an entry in his war log. "These humans are unlike any warriors I have known. They fight with fury, but also with cunning. They bleed, but they never stop moving. They speak of survival not as chance, but as a choice. The coalition came to Veyron to defend it. But now I see that it is the humans who may truly save it. They have shown us not only how to fight, but how to believe again." Threx paused, looking out across the campfires dotting the ruins of the city. In the distance, he could hear human voices singing softly. Strange, rough melodies from their world. Perhaps, Threx whispered to himself, Deathworlders are exactly what we needed. The battle for Veyron was far from over. The raiders were preparing their largest assault yet, but the coalition was no longer the same. They were no longer simply waiting for rescue. They had seen the Deathworlders fight. They had learned from them, and they were ready to stand beside them. Tomorrow would decide the fate of Veyron, and tomorrow, the galaxy would see what it truly meant when humans went to war. The dawn sky over Veyron was red with fire. Clouds of smoke hung low, and the ground shook as the raider army moved. This was no raid, no scattered assault. This was their full strength. Thousands of troops, heavy walkers, armored carriers, and strike craft filling the horizon like a tide of steel. The defenders knew it at once. This was the final push. If the coalition lines broke today, Veyron would fall. Commander Threx stood on the command tower, staring at the advancing army. His mandibles clicked nervously. "This is their largest offensive yet," he said. "If we cannot stop them here, we lose the planet." Beside him, Captain Marcus Hale tightened the straps on his armor. His face was calm, but his eyes were sharp. "Then we don't let them stop us," Hale said firmly. We fight on our terms, not theirs. Threx looked at him uneasy. Our forces are scattered, our numbers are small. The raiders are prepared. What hope do we have? Hale gave a short smile. The same hope humanity has always had. Survive the impossible. The coalition line stretched across the ruins of the city. Soldiers fortified walls, set up barricades, and prepared weapons. Many were afraid. But when they saw the humans moving among them, their fear lessened. Sergeant Ramirez barked orders, helping alien soldiers position explosives in collapsed buildings. Private Lewis, still limping from his leg wound, checked heavy guns and encouraged nervous recruits. Other humans showed coalition troops how to fight in smaller squads, how to use rubble as cover, how to set ambushes. They're coming with everything, Ramirez told Arveth as they crouched behind a barricade. That's good. Makes them predictable, Arveth frowned. Predictable? They have enough firepower to crush us. Maybe, Ramirez said, grinning. But heavy firepower's useless if you can't hit what you can't see. The raider assault began with thunder. Artillery shells rained down, smashing trenches and scattering soldiers. Then the walkers advanced, towering machines of metal, their cannons blasting apart defenses. Behind them, waves of raider infantry charged. Coalition soldiers opened fire, the air filled with plasma and smoke. But the enemy kept coming, step by step, closer to breaking through. Commander Threx clenched his fists. He had seen this before. This was how worlds fell. Then the humans moved. Captain Hale's voice cut across comms. All squads, execute the plan. From hidden positions across the ruins, explosions erupted. Charges buried under rubble detonated, collapsing entire buildings onto advancing walkers. Dozens of raider infantry were crushed beneath falling stone. Sniper teams hidden in shadows picked off enemy officers. Small human squads darted through alleys, striking at weak spots, vanishing before the enemy could respond. The battlefield turned into chaos. Raiders expected a straight fight, but instead they were dragged into 100 small wars in every street and corner. Lieutenant Arveth led a mixed squad of coalition and human soldiers. Under Ramirez's guidance, they fought like never before, hitting fast, moving constantly, never staying in one place. At one point, Arveth's squad was cornered by a raider unit twice their size. His instincts told him to retreat, but Ramirez simply grinned. Watch and learn, the human said. They set fire to abandoned fuel lines, creating a wall of flame between them and the raiders. Then they slipped through side alleys, circling behind the enemy. Within minutes, what had seemed like certain death turned into a surprise ambush that shattered the raider squad. Arveth stared in disbelief. You turned a trap into an attack. That's the trick, Ramirez said, patting him on the shoulder. On a death world, the ground itself tries to kill you. You learn to turn danger into your weapon. For the first time, Arveth truly felt what it meant to fight the human way. The battle raged for hours. Raiders pressed forward with overwhelming numbers, but the defenders refused to break. Every time the line bent, the humans led a counterattack, driving the enemy back. At one point, a massive walker broke through the defenses, its cannons tearing apart coalition positions. Panic spread as soldiers scattered. Captain Hale sprinted toward it with a squad of humans. With me, he shouted. They climbed onto the machine like ants crawling up a giant. Under heavy fire, they planted explosives along its joints. The walker shuddered, collapsing in flames as the humans leapt clear at the last second. Coalition soldiers watching the act roared in cheers, their spirits reignited. But Koresh, the raider commander, was not finished. Push harder, he roared to his forces. Break them. Tear down their hope. He unleashed his reserves, hundreds of fresh troops supported by airstrikes. The sky filled with screaming gunships raining fire onto the city. The coalition line faltered. Trenches collapsed, barricades burned, and defenders fell back. For a moment, it seemed the battle would finally be lost. Commander Threx looked on in despair. We cannot hold, he cried. But Hale's voice came through the comms again, steady and unshaken. Yes, we can. Not by holding. By striking. The humans unleashed their final gambit. While the raiders focused on breaking the front lines, human squads had quietly moved behind enemy positions. Now they attacked with full force, raiding command posts, sabotaging supply lines, and planting explosives on heavy vehicles. Koresh's army, once a united spear, suddenly broke into confusion. Raiders turned to face threats from behind, giving the coalition precious time to regroup. Threx watched in amazement as chaos spread through the enemy. They're breaking, he whispered. Not breaking, Arveth corrected, standing beside him. They're being broken by Deathworlders. The fighting reached its climax in the heart of the city. Koresh himself led a vanguard, determined to crush the humans personally. His massive frame and armored guards cut through defenders, driving them back. Captain Hale stepped forward to meet him, rifle in hand. Koresh sneered. So you are the human leader, the Deathworlder. You think your tricks can defeat me? Hale's voice was calm. It's not tricks, it's survival. And survival always beats arrogance. The two forces clashed, Koresh's guards against Hale's squad. Plasma bolts and steel filled the air. Hale moved with precision, his soldiers fighting with ruthless coordination. At the height of the fight, Hale planted an explosive on Koresh's command walker. The blast tore through the machine, throwing Koresh to the ground. Wounded and enraged, the Raider commander was dragged back by his remaining troops as his army began to collapse. By nightfall, the battle was over. The Raiders retreated in disarray, leaving wreckage across the city. For the first time since the invasion began, Varen still stood after a full-scale assault. Coalition soldiers cheered, exhaustion turning to triumph. They hugged one another, shouting in disbelief. Commander Threx looked across the battlefield, his voice full of awe. We should have been destroyed today. Instead, we have victory, Arveth added quietly, watching the humans gather their wounded but still smiling. No, we did not just survive. We learned how to fight. That night, the Coalition camp was alive with energy. Soldiers who once doubted the humans now treated them with deep respect. They offered them food, stories, even songs from their homeworlds. The humans laughed and joined in, their rough voices mixing with the others. For the first time, the defenders of Varen felt united, not as separate species, but as one army. Yet Captain Hale remained cautious. As he looked out at the ruined horizon, he knew Koresh was not finished. They'll be back, Hale said quietly to Ramirez. Stronger, angrier, Ramirez smirked. Good, let them come. We'll be ready. Hale nodded, his eyes hard. They thought they could break us with numbers. Now they know better. Now they know what Deathworlders are. Commander Threx recorded his final note of the day. We asked for fleets, for armies, for strength in numbers. Instead, we were given a handful of humans. At first, we thought it was a mistake. But today I understand. The humans are not just soldiers. They are survival made flesh. They fight as if every battle is life itself. And in doing so, they remind us all how to fight. The tide has turned. Varen still stands. And it stands because of Deathworlders. The night over Varen was unusually quiet. The smoke from the previous battles still hung low, casting shadows over the ruined city streets. Coalition soldiers slept uneasily in temporary shelters. Their bodies ached, their minds were tired, but something new had begun to take root. Hope. Among them, the humans did not rest. They moved quietly, checking weapons, repairing armor, and observing the perimeter. Their eyes scanned the horizon, alert and sharp. Captain Marcus Hale walked through the camp, nodding to his soldiers. Rest if you can, he said, but keep your senses ready. They'll be back. Lieutenant Arveth followed him. Do you really think they'll return? He asked. After the losses today? Hale did not smile. They'll return. They always do. But now they know we are not ordinary prey. We are Deathworlders. The first warning came before dawn. Raiders moved silently, almost invisible in the darkness, their heavy vehicles hidden among smoke and debris. This was no chaotic attack. This was a calculated strike. Koresh had learned from his failures, and he was determined to end this war. The humans were ready. They had prepared traps, ambush points, and improvised weapons across the battlefield. Every street, every building, every ruined wall had been turned into a potential weapon. Captain Hale's voice crackled over comms. Positions. Stay hidden. Let them come to us. Arveth observed the humans as they moved, calm and precise. They were like predators, knowing every angle, every blind spot, every danger. Coalition soldiers, following their lead, felt an unfamiliar surge of confidence. The raiders advanced at first light. Their heavy walkers rolled forward, followed by infantry squads and gunships. From the Coalition perspective, it seemed as though the raiders would finally crush the city. Then the humans struck. From hidden vantage points, small squads opened fire, picking off key targets with precision. Charges hidden under rubble tore through advancing walkers, flipping them and blocking streets. Sniper teams eliminated enemy officers, causing confusion and hesitation among raider ranks. Arveth watched in awe as the humans moved seamlessly through the chaos. Where Coalition soldiers hesitated or froze, the humans adapted instantly, attacking, retreating, and striking again in unpredictable ways. "They're incredible," Arveth whispered to himself. "They survive because they must," Hale replied quietly. "It's in their nature." The raiders attempted to regroup, but the humans anticipated every move. They set traps that lured entire squads into ambushes. They used fire, smoke, and rubble to their advantage. They even turned abandoned raider vehicles against their former owners, hacking into control systems and driving them into the enemy lines. By mid-morning, Koresh's forces were faltering. His attacks, once overwhelming, now stumbled against the humans' cunning. His troops panicked as squads vanished and reappeared in unexpected locations. Koresh growled in frustration. "This cannot be. How do a few humans cause such chaos?" His lieutenants exchanged nervous glances. They had underestimated the Deathworlders, and now it was costing them dearly. Captain Hale led a small team into the heart of the battle. Their objective, Koresh's command walker. The massive machine towered over the battlefield, directing the raider forces. Destroying it could turn the tide completely. The team moved with silent precision. They avoided patrols, scaled crumbling walls, and used shadows as cover. When they reached the walker, Hale planted explosives at strategic points. "Ready?" he asked Ramirez. Ramirez nodded. "Always ready." The team leapt away as the explosives detonated. The walker erupted in a shower of fire and metal. Raiders scattered in panic as the machine's destruction caused a ripple of chaos through their forces. Across the city, Coalition soldiers followed the humans' lead. They fought with renewed vigor, inspired by the humans' fearlessness. Where once they had retreated, they now advanced, coordinating with human squads to create a web of counterattacks. Even the wounded, encouraged by the humans' determination, returned to the fight. Private Lewis, despite his bandaged leg, led a squad against a raider strongpoint, holding it until reinforcements arrived. Arveth moved through the streets, witnessing the transformation. Coalition soldiers were no longer merely defending. They were learning to fight, to survive, to adapt. And at the center of it all were the Deathworlders, leading by example. Koresh realized his defeat was imminent. His army was in disarray, and the humans continued to strike with terrifying efficiency. Desperation replaced his arrogance. "Fall back. Regroup at the eastern ridge," he commanded. But it was too late. Human squads had cut off his retreat routes, and Coalition soldiers pressed forward from the front. The raiders began to flee, leaving behind vehicles, weapons, and wounded soldiers. Varen was still standing. Against all odds, the defenders had won. As the battle ended, the survivors gathered amidst the ruins. Coalition soldiers cheered and embraced, their exhaustion replaced by relief and pride. They had faced annihilation and survived. Commander Threx approached Captain Hale, eyes wide with admiration. I do not know how to thank you. You were more than soldiers, you were saviors." Hale shook his head. "We didn't do this alone. Every soldier here fought, learned, and adapted. The humans just happened to know how to survive the worst. That's all." Threx nodded slowly, realizing the truth. Humanity was not just another species. It was a force shaped by hardship, instinct, and resilience. That evening, the humans gathered once more around a campfire. They cleaned their weapons, tended to their wounded, and shared stories of home, of a world harsh enough to make survival a skill and life a test every day. Coalition soldiers joined them, listening and learning. Arveth sat nearby, finally understanding. "You are different," he said quietly. Hale smiled. "Yes, we are human. We are Deathworlders, and we fight the way we live, relentless, adaptable, and never defeated." The victory of Varen became a legend. Across the Coalition systems, the story spread. A small human company had arrived as backup, and against impossible odds, they had not only defended a world, but turned the tide of battle. They had taught allies how to fight, how to survive, and how to believe in victory when all seemed lost. Koresh's forces never returned. The raiders learned to fear the humans, the Deathworlders who could face annihilation and still thrive. Commander Threx recorded the final entry in his log. "We asked for backup, expecting fleets, weapons, and numbers. Instead, we received humans. At first I doubted. I feared for Varen. But now I understand. What we received was far greater than reinforcements. We received Deathworlders. They are fearless, adaptable, relentless. They bleed like all others, yet they never yield. They inspire courage, unity, and hope. Today, Varen stands. Today, humanity has shown what it truly means to fight. We asked for backup. What we got were Deathworlders. In the quiet that followed, the survivors looked to the sky. Stars glittered faintly through smoke and clouds. On the horizon, the ruined city smoldered, but life remained. Humans and coalition soldiers alike stood side by side, a testament to courage, resilience, and the spirit that refused to be broken. Varen was saved. The galaxy had witnessed the power of Deathworlders, and humanity, small in number but mighty in spirit, had earned a place among the stars that would never be forgotten.